last month, according to the latest economic report. It's mixed messaging, with Americans still feeling the inflation squeeze. Economist Dr. Daniel Altman is here to talk about setbacks and industries already seeing a mini recession, and just generally to break all of this down. Good morning to you, Dr. Altman. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Jeanette. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about what we're seeing here. We mentioned it's a mixed bag. What are the highlights?
Well, I think that the first thing people will have on their minds is inflation. And what we saw in the January data is that there was an uptick in inflation of about 0.5%, which was the biggest increase that we saw since October. But that was driven a lot by the prices for housing. And we know that's kind of a lagging indicator of what's going on in the economy overall. So, while it might stiffen the Fed's resolve to keep pushing hard on the economy and tightening up its monetary policy, it's probably not the most recent important data point that's telling us about what's going to happen in the future this year.
Yeah, speaking of the Fed, do you suspect essentially that this means, as far as them raising interest rates, that probably won't let up anytime soon? Isn't their goal 2% inflation? We're still at just over 6%?
Yeah, I don't think they're expecting to get there right away, maybe not even this year, but they're looking perhaps to raise rates just a little bit more and then stand pat for a while to just let those effects percolate throughout the economy. I think that we're going to see a rather soft landing for the economy, but probably a hard stop for the Fed's posture, because they really can't afford to be seen to be loosening up in any way that might damage their credibility.
When you say soft landing, and we've been talking a lot about that, soft landing, that's what we want ideally. What does that actually look like, though?
A soft landing would be inflation coming down without unemployment going up a lot. We've been able to achieve a lot of that already. We've seen inflation come down probably a couple percentage points already, and without a corresponding increase in unemployment. The economy and the labor market have still been pretty strong.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're hoping to see more of this year.
You talked about the labor market. I want to talk about that as well, because the jobs report for last month was good, and for some people it seems a little counterintuitive. Can you explain how that really just kind of goes with what you would see on the other side of things?
Sure. When inflation is increasing, that is affecting hundreds of millions of consumers all across our economy. When unemployment increases, it means that a couple million people may lose their jobs, which is tragic for them. But most of the people in the economy don't feel it as much. So even though we may not be in a recession now, and we haven't been in one for over a year, since the pandemic began, a lot of people were still feeling the pressure on their budgets because of inflation, and now because of rising interest rates as well.
Gotcha. We've talked, you mentioned recession. We've heard rolling recessions, mini recessions, just a recession in general. Where are we seeing that, if at all, and what can we expect moving forward this year?
Well, at the end of last year, we pretty much saw a recession in residential home building. Because of the higher interest rates, mortgages were getting more expensive, and it was harder for people to afford homes. Home building really slowed down. But some of the people who watch that really closely, like Darryl Fairweather, who's the chief economist over at Redfin, think that it's starting to turn around now, and home building may start to bounce back. That's one of the reasons why that number in inflation related to housing is expected to come down a bit, because as we build more houses, there's going to be more supply in the market, and prices won't have so much pressure on them. There'll be a little more demand in the market, perhaps. We shall see. But with supply coming back into the market, we would expect less pressure on prices and lower inflation in that area.
All right. So as a consumer, I'm hearing all of this talk, and it might sound a little overwhelming, maybe some confusion in some areas. But ultimately, what do I do when it comes to my money, savings, and my finances?
Well, it's a tough squeeze for a lot of households right now, because they're facing inflation, which is continuing, especially in food prices. They're facing these higher interest rates, which are percolating through to their credit card rates. And some of that extra saving that they built up during the pandemic by not going out, not spending as much, is really starting to erode. So the question is, how do you close that budget gap on a month-to-month basis? And I think it's one reason why a lot of people are coming to our platform to sign up for flexible work, because they're looking for that extra bit of income to help close that gap.
All right, something to certainly keep an eye on. Economist Dr. Daniel Altman joining me this morning. Thanks for breaking that down. Hopefully that provides some clarity to a lot of folks out there. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.